What if 2,000-year-old stories could change how you see the world today? The Bible is filled with parables. Short, simple stories that Jesus told to communicate profound spiritual truths. But the magic of these stories isn't just in the religious context or historical relevance. It's in how they've endured, echoed, and adapted through centuries, quietly shaping human behavior and morality. Yet somehow, they still hold the power to surprise us, to flip our assumptions, challenge our judgments, and invite us into deeper reflection. Take, for instance, the prodigal son. You've probably heard it before. A reckless young man demands his inheritance, squanders it all, hits rock bottom, and then returns home expecting rejection. Instead, he's met with love. But is it really just a story about forgiveness? Or is it also about ego, resentment, and the silent weight of unspoken pain? Like that of the older brother who never left, who never got a party, and who still feels unseen. Then there's the Good Samaritan. A feel-good tale of helping a stranger, right? Maybe? Or maybe it's far more provocative than we remember. Maybe it's a direct challenge to our prejudices, a bold punch to the gut in a world divided by politics, race, and religion. What happens when the one person you least expect to help you becomes your lifeline? These aren't just tales. They're mirrors for your life. They're invitations to explore who you are in the story and how that story plays out today. In your relationships, in your beliefs, in the way you see and treat others. This video isn't just about unpacking old scripture. It's about rediscovering meaning where you didn't expect it. Stick around because we're diving deep into two of the most powerful parables ever told. And once you see them through a modern lens, you might never read them the same way again. Parables weren't just storytelling devices. They were Jesus' signature teaching tool. Rather than laying out rigid rules or theological arguments, he told stories. Simple everyday scenarios. A lost coin, a tiny mustard seed, a runaway son, a traveler attacked on the road. But within those moments of mundane life, he planted spiritual dynamite. A parable is more than a moral tale. It's a layered, symbolic story that holds multiple meanings. And the more you sit with it, the more it reveals. That's intentional. Jesus often ended his parables without explanation, sometimes even saying, "He who has ears, let him hear." Why? Because the power of a parable lies in its ambiguity. It's not meant to feed you answers. It's meant to make you hunger for deeper truth. It nudges you to ask, what does this mean for me here and now? In many ways, parables were the ancient world's version of what we see today in short films, viral memes, or even TikTok trends. They use simplicity to provoke complexity. They don't just aim for understanding, they aim for transformation. And just like a great movie twist or a line in a song that hits too close to home, a good parable lingers. It stays with you, haunts you a little, until it reshapes something inside you. Think about how we still use stories to make sense of the world. We explain politics with analogies. We teach kids morals with cartoons. We try to make sense of suffering with movies and novels. Story is our oldest, most universal language, and Jesus knew that. That's why he didn't preach at people. He offered them something much more dangerous, a mirror. That's what makes parables timeless. They compress vast, soul-shifting wisdom into emotion-packed moments. And no matter how far we've come in time or technology, that power remains. Because at the core of every parable is a whisper, not just of who God is, but of who we are and who we could be. So when we revisit these stories today, we're not just reading old lessons, we're decoding deep truths. And the further we look, the closer they get to our lives. The parable of the prodigal son is one of the most famous stories ever told. Found in the Gospel of Luke, it begins with a younger son who demands his share of the inheritance, a request that in that time and culture would have been seen as deeply disrespectful, almost like wishing his father dead. He takes the money and leaves home, venturing off to a far country where he wastes everything on reckless living. When famine strikes and he's left broke, humiliated, and feeding pigs, a job unthinkable for a Jewish man, he realizes what he's done. Desperate, he prepares a speech of repentance and decides to return home, not to be welcomed back as a son, but to ask to work as a hired servant. But that's only half the story. The other son, the one who stayed, who worked, who obeyed, watches the celebration unfold and feels rage bubble inside him. He refuses to join the party. He confronts his father, demanding to know why the reckless brother gets a feast, while he, the faithful one, never even got a goat to celebrate with his friends. His father responds with tenderness, reminding him that everything the father owns has always been his, but also insisting that celebrating the lost son's return is right, because he was lost, and now he's found. Each character in this story carries a depth of emotion that reaches into the heart of the human experience. The younger son returns home expecting nothing but maybe a second-class place. Instead, he's embraced, not shamed. The father runs to him, hugs him, kisses him, clothes him in the finest robe, places a ring on his finger, and throws a feast. The sheer weight of this welcome is overwhelming. It's not transactional, it's transformational. It's the kind of love that meets someone not after they've cleaned up, but when they're still covered in dirt. Now picture this in a modern setting. A college dropout has hit rock bottom after years of burning bridges. Maybe addiction, maybe debt, maybe just plain poor decisions. With nowhere else to turn, he calls home. His father doesn't hesitate. He picks him up from the bus station, takes him out for dinner, washes his clothes, and tells him he's always welcome. But at home, his older brother, who stayed, who worked 2 jobs, who helped around the house, watches the scene with quiet resentment. No celebration was ever thrown for him. No extra hug, no dinner out, no proud fatherly post on Facebook. And now he has to sit and smile for someone who abandoned everything. The emotional tension here is real. Who are you in this story? Maybe you're the one who messed up, hoping for a second chance. Maybe you're the parent who's been praying for a child to come home. Or maybe you're the sibling who's tired of being overlooked, the one who did everything right but feels invisible. This parable forces us to look at how we treat failure, how we define love, and what fairness really means. In a world obsessed with performance and merit, this story smashes the idea that people must earn their place back in our hearts. It whispers a different truth, that grace is scandalous, that love can look unfair, and that being right doesn't always mean being whole. The story of the Good Samaritan begins with a question posed to Jesus by a lawyer. Who is my neighbor? In response, Jesus tells a story that would have stunned his audience. A man is traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho when he's attacked by robbers. They beat him, strip him, and leave him half dead on the side of the road. A priest walks by, sees the man, and crosses to the other side. A Levite, a religious leader, does the same. Then a Samaritan comes along. He stops, bandages the man's wounds, puts him on his own donkey, and takes him to an inn. There he pays for the man's stay and even promises to return and cover any additional costs. To modern ears, Samaritan might sound like a nice word. Someone helpful, generous, good-hearted. But to Jesus' Jewish audience, it meant something very different. Samaritans were despised. They were seen as heretics, racially impure, religiously untrustworthy. There were centuries of hatred between Jews and Samaritans. So to make a Samaritan the hero of the story, and the priest and Levite the ones who failed, wasn't just shocking. It was offensive. Imagine this story retold today. A wealthy executive collapses on the sidewalk in a big city. Dozens walk by. A politician, a pastor, a social media influencer, but no one stops. Finally, a homeless man pushes his cart over, kneels beside him and calls for help. Or imagine a protester from one side of a political divide, beaten and bloody, helped up by someone wearing the shirt or hat of the enemy. The Samaritan doesn't just stop. He takes the man to safety, pays for his care, and says he'll return to check in. No expectation of repayment. No strings attached. Just mercy. The message is unsettling in its simplicity. Help the person in front of you. Period. Even if they hate you. Even if you disagree with everything they stand for. Even if they'd never do the same for you. The priest and the Levite walked by, perhaps with justifications in their hearts, but they walked by all the same. The Samaritan, the one who should have walked away, did not. In a world where we are constantly asked to take sides, the parable refuses to play along. It refuses to reduce people to tribes. It refuses to let compassion become conditional. You don't need to know someone's backstory to stop and help. You don't need to approve of their life to show mercy. You don't even need to agree with them to love them. Today, the world is louder than ever. We see pain in headlines, in tweets, in viral videos. We see injustice unfold on our screens. The temptation to scroll past, to disengage, to keep walking is always there. But the Samaritan didn't keep walking. He interrupted his plans, spent his money, used his strength, and opened his heart. Not because it was convenient, but because it was right. This story pushes past all our excuses. It doesn't ask what someone believes or where they come from. It simply asks, will you stop? Not just in theory, not just in conversation, but in action. Will you stop when the world keeps going? Will you care when it costs something? Will you help someone who wouldn't help you? We all like to think we'd be the Samaritan, but maybe we're the ones too busy. Maybe we're the ones afraid to get involved. Maybe we're the ones watching from the other side of the road, hoping someone else will do something. The parable invites us to see ourselves not just in the hero, but in everyone. The man in need, the ones who walked away, the one who stopped. In the end, Jesus doesn't say, be like the Samaritan. He says, go and do likewise. That's the challenge. That's the call. In a divided world, in a digital age, in a culture that often rewards cruelty over kindness, go and do likewise. There's a reason we keep coming back to these stories. Not because they're old, but because they're alive. The parables of Jesus were never meant to be dusty relics from another time. They're invitations. Not to simply believe more, but to grow deeper. To challenge how we see the world, how we see others, and most importantly, how we see ourselves. Parables ask us to lay down our assumptions. They urge us to move beyond the comfort of labels, saint or sinner, good or bad, insider or outsider, and see the complexity of the human heart. In the prodigal son, we see grace extended not only to the one who failed, but to the one who followed all the rules and still felt lost. In the Good Samaritan, we witness compassion that defies tribalism, mercy that ignores boundaries, and love that acts first and asks questions later. There is a quiet power in these stories, not just to comfort us, but to confront us. They reflect back what's happening inside us. Our grudges, our fears, our longing to be accepted, our hesitation to forgive. They do not just speak about others. They speak to us right where we are. Maybe that's why, after 2,000 years, they still resonate. They adapt, they stretch, they rise to meet every generation with the same quiet force. A call to live with more grace, more courage, more compassion. These parables aren't instructions. They're mirrors. And every time we return to them, we don't just understand them more. We understand ourselves more. Maybe you're the prodigal, the one who's messed up, wandered far, and wonders if there's still a way back. Or maybe you're the older brother, the one who did everything right but still feels unseen, waiting for someone to notice the quiet weight you carry. Or maybe, just maybe, you're the one lying on the side of the road, beaten down by life, hoping someone will stop. These stories aren't just meant to be understood. They're meant to be lived. They aren't distant lessons from a holy book. They are present, breathing challenges. They push us to forgive when it's hard, to love when it's uncomfortable, and to see each other as more than our worst decisions or our deepest wounds. If this gave you a new perspective, if you saw yourself in these parables or felt something shift inside, don't let it end here. Like this video, subscribe for more and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Because stories only grow when they are passed on. And the truth? Someone out there is waiting for a modern-day Samaritan or a prodigal moment of grace to change their life.